This video is brought to you by Squarespace. I've never done a video on The Last of Us, so here's what I think about The Last of Us. I really appreciate the subtle and not so subtle ways that this game builds its world. When you step into those city streets, you immediately know the sort of world you're stepping into.
Alright, she's down. Fuck this! Holy shit!
There's another moment later that shows how desperate people have become.
Hey, don't even think about cutting in line.
Fucking A. Waiting on this rat forever.
But I think some of the best world building comes in this moment.
Fucking truck. It's been hounding us ever since we got in this damn... Sam, what are you doing?
Nothing.
Get rid of it.
My backpack is practically empty.
What's the rule about taking stuff?
It weighs like nothing.
The rule. What is it?
We only take what we have to.
That's right. Now come on.
And also in this moment.
Ready?
Okay, do it.
Just gonna...
Oh, Henry, did you see that?
Let's keep it down, buddy, okay?
Yeah. Sorry.
Showing people lined up against walls or eating rats is an easy way to convey how desperate things are, but I think these scenes do far more to showcase just how joyless and hopeless this world has become. Small toys are too much of an encumbrance, and small moments of happiness are too risky an indulgence. There isn't much to live for when simple things such as these are out of reach. I don't much like the gameplay in The Last of Us. I think its stealth is one-dimensional and loses a lot of credibility owing to your companions running around noisily while you have to stealth silently. This feels like a big oversight from Naughty Dog given how committed this game is to realism and immersion. I'm sure the developers look at footage like this and cringe. I also don't much like the combat. I think the shooting is clunky and unsatisfying, and that melee is just mindless mashing of the square button whenever you get in range of your enemy. I must say though that the ferocity of Joel is a real sight to behold. The way the camera swings, the way animations adapt to nearby walls or desks. It's simple melee combat, but its audio-visual feedback is to third-person melee combat, while Destiny's weapon feedback is to first-person shooting. Even though I don't like the individual stealth, shooting, or melee systems, I have a lot of respect for the way they meld together and how much choice they give me. On normal difficulty, if you want to bum rush every enemy you see, or stealth past everyone, or shoot everything on sight, then you can do that. On harder difficulties, that isn't possible since enemy damage output and ammo economies force you to take a more cautious approach. I play on normal though, which means I can go in, I can stealth a bit, I can get spotted, and then I can adapt. I like the fact that each part of the combat model works well enough that I can lean into it at a moment's notice and it will let me get the job done. I particularly like the clicker enemy design.
Clickers?
Shit, go.
Their faces seem to be a sort of sound trap because they're blind. They crane their necks to listen for you. You stealth as quietly as possible near them and it slows gameplay to a crawl. You almost hold your breath as you approach them. I like how clickers are a one-hit kill in gameplay scenarios. Their binary win-loss design stands in contrast to how much freedom you have to make decisions in combat. With humans, runners, and stalkers, you have a margin for error to play with. They feel like enemies that need to be fought. Clickers feel like a gameplay puzzle that needs to be solved on the fly. This can often be frustrating as they regularly send you back to loading screens, but they force you to think and play differently, which is important given how limited overall enemy variety is. In contrast, I think bloaters are pretty lame. The Last of Us is one of those rare games where I don't particularly enjoy the gameplay, but I never got bored of playing it. I think that's because Naughty Dog worked hard to develop clever set-piece moments that riffed brilliantly on their core gameplay design. The sequence here is a perfect example. It's just shooting enemies, but you're upside down. Genius. No, but seriously, this is actually really fun.
How's it looking?
The jumpstart sequence is another example. It's still just shooting zombies that are running towards you, but now you're also trying to jumpstart a car, balancing the whole pushing thing with the whole shooting thing. The Blizzard section feels like a really fresh take on stealth since visibility is so reduced. The best example though is the sniper section, where you're pinned down but you have to advance forward.
Get out!
It's a little different than anything you've done up to that point, but the framing of the encounter makes it unbelievably tense and so memorable. Even years after playing this game, I still remember this bit so vividly. There are other ways that The Last of Us is paced, but this right here is the worst one.
Great, bring it over.
The Last of Us is famous for being the world's first third-person ladderer. Critics of this gameplay design continue to sell it short because they only acknowledge the ladders. It's also planks and dumpsters. Incredible, cutting-edge, dumpster-based design that most casual gamers just don't have the IQ to appreciate. No, but honestly, these environmental puzzles are terrible. They exist only to pump the brakes on what is an otherwise breathless adventure. Often they're used as a backdrop for some Joel and Ellie bonding time, but it's the worst form of it. Their exploration through Billstown or the university are both infinitely better examples of quality time together, since the player is exploring the world rather than just doing boring bullshit. With the likes of Uncharted on their CV, it's a shame that Naughty Dog couldn't come up with better environmental puzzles than this. I guess this brings us to the most important pacing mechanism of all, the cutscenes.
Sarah. Move your hands, babe. I know, baby, I know. God. Listen to me, I know this hurts, baby. You're gonna be okay, baby. Stay with me. All right, I'm gonna pick you up. I know, baby, I know it hurts. Come on, baby, please. I know, baby, I know. Sarah. Baby. Don't do this to me, baby. Don't do this to me, baby. Come on.
You know, even the first time I saw this, I cried. I met these characters like 10 minutes before, and already I was feeling things that very, very few video games had made me feel. It's a true testament to the writing, the visuals, and the voice actors that we can be brought to this point so quickly. The Last of Us is one of the highest rated games of all time. It didn't earn that score because of its gameplay. I don't care what anyone says. If this game had a shitty story, we'd struggle to remember the name of this game. Unless you experienced it back then, it's hard to fully appreciate its impact. The Last of Us wasn't the first game to hit you right in the feels, but it seemed to hit you so fucking hard that you were down for the count. Its success was so absolute, it seemed to birth a new style of game, the movie game. Sony in particular would go on to ape huge portions of The Last of Us formula, things like its third-person off-centered camera, its focus on in-engine cutscenes, its reliance on dialogue during gameplay instead of just during cutscenes, as well as the strong emotional pulse built most often on familial relationships. The Last of Us didn't invent any of these things, but it mixed them together in just the right amounts to create a concoction that felt worthy of imitation. 7 years later, I'm struck by how influential The Last of Us has become. You don't get the God of War reboot were it not for The Last of Us. You certainly don't get Days Gone, since that was like dollar store Last of Us. I don't think you get a lot of the walking sim genre either, since a lot of that is just about exploring the way that people react to things. I wonder if you get Red Dead 2 without The Last of Us. The first Red Dead predated The Last of Us by 3 years, and it absolutely had its emotional peaks, but Red Dead 2 was just worlds deeper. I wonder if Rockstar were at all inspired by the fusion of Joel and Ellie as they wrote the sundering of Arthur Morgan and Dutch van der Linde. If you have any affinity for The Last of Us, it's it's going to be in large part because of the way that Joel and Ellie come together. It's a masterful mix of personal character arcs, a hero's journey, and a moral dilemma that is so deeply unsolvable that it will stay with you long after the credits roll. Joel's character arc is the most compelling aspect of the game because of its intricacy and its believability. Still broken 20 years after the death of his daughter, Joel is hardened and untrusting and cynical and self-interested. He doesn't believe the world has any good left in it, so when he's offered the chance to save it, he balks at the opportunity.
This was 3 weeks. I was bitten an hour ago and it's already worse. This is fucking real, Joel. You've got to get this girl to Tommy's. He used to run with this crew. He'll know where to go.
No, that was your crusade. I am not doing that.
Yes, you are. Look.
Joel's character is defined by the walls he's built around himself, best demonstrated in this scene where he refuses to accept a picture of his daughter because the pain is just too much to bear.
Here. It's a little faded, but it still looks pretty good.
I'm good.
You sure?
I said I'm good.
Everything is brought to a head in this climactic moment when Joel tries one last time to abandon Ellie, fearful of again experiencing the pain and loss that has defined his last 20 years.
Everyone I have cared for has either died or left me. Everyone fucking except for you. So don't tell me that I would be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
You're right. You're not my daughter. And I sure as hell ain't your dad.
These moments are difficult to watch, but they're made easier by the subtle thawing that takes place elsewhere. Here, when taking in the view, Joel glances down at his broken watch, the gift his daughter gave him the night she died. It's the first moment when Joel begins to see his daughter in Ellie. This little glance down at his broken watch was the real start of their journey together. But the defining moment of their fusion is here. Ellie kills her attacker, proving that she doesn't need Joel to save her from him, but she does need him to save her from herself. He pulls her away, and then this happens.
He took me!
It's okay. It's me. It's me. It's me. Look. It's me.
He tried to...
Oh, baby girl. It's okay. It's okay.
No.
It's okay.
He calls her baby girl for the first time, and we're not allowed to hear what they're saying after that because this is the moment when Ellie and Joel become Ellie and Joel. He promises to take care of her forever, and she accepts that. There's no words that would suffice here, and the writers were wise enough to know that. After an emotional crescendo like that, there is no way we could have expected what comes next.
You see that? Don't scare it.
I won't.
I did a video a long time ago titled Masterstroke, which was about the way that Warframe judiciously dropped its best, most impactful moment after 70 hours of play. In that video, I referenced this scene here with the giraffes because it's perhaps the best example I can think of when I think masterstrokes in gaming. The final definitive brushstroke that pushes an artist or a work into the uppermost reaches of achievement. This scene right here, deployed at exactly the right moment, totally unexpected, completely different from anything we'd seen before, pregnant with meaning we don't yet know. This right here is a masterstroke. It's also a last supper of sorts, given what comes next.
The hell do you mean surgery?
The doctors tell me the cordyceps, the growth inside her, has somehow mutated. It's why she's immune. Once they remove it, they'll be able to reverse engineer a vaccine. A vaccine.
But it grows all over the brain.
It does.
When Joel learns what it'll cost to save the world, there really isn't a lot of hesitation. You can murder your way back into the operating theatre, but if you choose to stealth past everything, there's still a final fatal roadblock. The lone surgeon standing before you represents the hope of a cure, and putting a bullet in his head symbolizes Joel's decision to doom the world.
Lives we'll save.
Don't come any closer. I mean it.
Joel won't lose another daughter, no matter the cost.
You fucking animal!
Girl, shut the hell up.
I got you. I got you. Oh, shit.
There's a Firefly saying that goes, when you're lost in the darkness, look for the light. And the subtle lighting of the way forward here feels like the universe telling us that Joel did the right thing, even when we know deep down that he didn't. Joel's decision here is so spectacularly selfish that it's impossible to rationally justify it, but it's also so devastatingly human that we can't say we do any different. That's the conceit at the heart of The Last of Us, the idea that love, even the pure protective love of a parent, can be evil. And at the heart of that choice is a sacrifice to truth that leaves us feeling sick in our stomachs.
You keep finding something to fight for. Now, I know that's not what you want to hear right now.
Swear to me. Swear to me that everything that you've said about the Fireflies is true.
I swear.
The Last of Us is one of the most celebrated video games of all time, but to be honest, I don't much like it as a game. I don't really like the stealth or the combat, but I do respect them for their functionality. I like the way you can approach challenges as you see fit. I especially like the way that Naughty Dog are able to riff on their core gameplay with subtle but effective variations. I really think that this is one of the best paced adventure games I've played, with the developer being acutely aware of the gameplay's limitations and knowing exactly how much to serve up before taking a quick break for a puzzle or a cutscene. But even with all of this, I just find the process of playing the game not particularly enjoyable. I don't really care about that though, because The Last of Us has some of the best writing we've seen in video games. Each character feels so real, so relatable. Every one of their choices feels like it comes from a deep well of history and experience. The way that Joel and Ellie come together is utterly unforgettable. Narrative and characters as expertly crafted and impactful as these don't come along often, be it in film or television or books or games. If we can accept that video games shouldn't always be defined by their playability alone, and that story is just as important, then the argument that The Last of Us is among the greatest games ever released holds a lot of water. This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace offer the best, most complete website creation tools you'll find anywhere on the internet, allowing you to make professional looking websites in mere minutes. You simply choose a template, make it your own, and then you're up and running. There's even advanced tools like SEO, increasing the chances that you'll be found on the internet. There's stuff like analytics, so you know how many people are visiting your site and what they're clicking on. And they even have e-commerce options, so you can run your own business through the website, selling stuff online, easy. To get started, visit squarespace.com, sign up, start designing your own site, and when you're ready to get serious, visit squarespace.com/skillup for 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. Thank you very much, Squarespace, for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it. Thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down so I know to do better for next time. If you enjoyed yourself, consider subscribing, and if you really enjoyed yourself, maybe consider hitting that notification bell so you never miss a video. You can see my patrons here on the left. They're awesome. They're amazing. If you want to join them, check out my Patreon page. Thank you again. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.